Oh, hello.
Welcome.
Welcome to fall equinox.
Ooh.
We're here with Ariana.
And
I'm Tanya and Mr. B.
very grateful that you've joined us again for another conversation about life. And today is a beautiful day. It's the first day of the rest of our lives. And
And it's the fall equinox, meaning it's the first day of fall. And I love this day. I'm not sure why, but I've always loved equinoxes. And today's, what I believe for today is the fall equinox is a time where what we can do is look back on our year and look at what we've harvested. Fall is a time of harvest. And it's been a tough year.
oh yeah.
For everyone, for the world, and it continues to be that. But taking the time out and going back and just looking at what are the things, what ways did we show up this year that we can be proud of, that we can say, wow, I harvested more patience in my life, or I harvested a new job or a new relationship, or whatever it is, something that wasn't exactly easy. You had to toil and plow and get through. Just getting through this year so far is recognizing that you've harvested and you've worked hard, and this is a time where we can celebrate our harvesting.
Yeah, it's like I keep hearing you say, I keep feeling this sense of celebration of our harvesting. Like it's like that partnership that we have with God in our life. Oh, it's been a hell of a year. But there's also goodness, because we know that to everything there is a season and a time and a purpose under heaven. Everything. Like, what do you think of when you hear that? That's such a beautiful scripture in the Old Testament. To everything there is a season and a purpose under heaven.
It's and a time for every purpose under heaven. So that second verse, to everything there's a season and a time for every purpose. There's not only the equinoxes, which is I love celebrating, like I said, equinoxes, but we're given seasons in our lives, and there's a purpose to every season, but we don't know how long they're going to last. There's a time for every purpose. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose. So that whole idea that there's these seasons in our lives, and it has a purpose under heaven.
Right.
It's the Bible verse.
Right.
The purpose is under heaven. It's God anointed.
Right. Well, what if there's a time that we can't find the purpose, that we feel lost and confused, and even a little bit anxious, or also this feeling of pandemic, whatever you want to call it. But like, there's this sense of, what if I can't find the purpose? So there's seasons of grief. We all know I'm in one of the deepest seasons of grief in my whole life. So trying to find purpose in the grief or the loss or the confusion is really difficult. But the scripture said there is a time for every purpose under heaven. So instead of focusing on what's the purpose, wait, I want to focus on the time. And right now we're in a time of a new season, fall.
We don't know. That's interesting, this concept of time. Time is just so valuable. And sometimes when we're in a season, we don't know the purpose and we don't know how long it's going to last. Like this time that's going by that I'm grieving or I'm rearranging my life after divorce, it goes by. And sometimes you think you're never going to get out of that season.
Yeah.
It can feel like that.
Right.
But I have to say that I think we can all look back and we realize that seasons do pass. So, one of my favorite sayings is this right here. This hangs in my my office. This too shall pass. If we don't know the purpose, we just know that eventually that the season's going to pass and we're going to be able to reflect on the purpose. So we can always look back and we'll find like, oh, it was painful, but I see how God was working in my life. And that's if we can constantly return to that focus and that trust.
Yeah.
Maybe does it help you get, like for you, especially right now, such deep grief, does that help you to think hopefully about this time will pass for you? At some point, you're not going to be grieving so heavily.
Yeah. It does help. And the promise that to everything there's a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. I have to believe that. So I look for one thing, one good thing. I look for what is light instead of darkness. Or if I'm in the middle of the darkness, I'm looking for the hope at the end of that tunnel. That's the purpose I find. And then we're going through leaving one season and into another, and I'm still holding on to, why did that happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm turning it around to say, but God, I believe you that to everything there is a season and a time and a purpose. So I'm just going to hold on to that. I don't have the answers, but I have the faith. I have the belief. I want the balance of this next season in my life, which is what I hear today is. It's the balance of light and darkness. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right.
I love that.
So the fall equinox is the amount of 24 hours. It's equally divided into a period of light and dark. So they're equal. So there's something about finding balance between light and dark. And for me, it really signifies summer is so light. It has so much lightness to it. And can we look back and see what things did we do in our lives that really brought more light to us this last season, the whole 3/4 of the year now, and what things actually were dark in our lives or even created more darkness in us. And we can see now that a little bit clearer, and going forward into the next season, we really want to make sure that we hold on to those things that brought us light over the summer, especially. What are those things? So as winter approaches, which gets more dark, what things can you hold on to right now that bring you light, and what things do you realize you really need to let go of that bring you darkness? So it's a good, I always look at fall equinox too as looking forward and making some plans. Like, this is really important for me to hold on to these things that help me to stay in the light, because more darkness now is coming, unfortunately. But one of the things, you've talked about your grief too, and that even though you don't know how long the grief is going to last, the quality of it changes.
Yes.
So talk about
Yes.
that.
Well, when we have something shocking happen in our life and we begin to walk through and realize we have grief, my situation, it's a death of my daughter. The grief is so deep. But I will cry for days and days and days and not be able to control that. But I asked a wonderful specialist, how long will I grieve? How long am I going to be in this?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, as long as your loved one is died, as long as they will be dead, you will grieve, but the grief will look differently. It will go through different seasons. And it's like when I learned about that, that's almost like life. Life has different seasons, but we don't know. We know there's a day that we breathe for our first time, and there's a day we take our last breath, and there's this life that goes through different seasons. Grief is like that. And so sometimes it may be a lighter grief, or a deeper grief, or a complicated grief, or a bereavement grief, or an acute grief. It's all different types of grief, but it is grief. And once we acknowledge it, what I've learned is then I can walk through it. If I can't acknowledge it and I'm confused, it will just loom there. And I want to be a woman that constantly is growing and moving forward. And when I need to sit and be still, I want to be still with the truth of what type of grief am I in today.
That's so good. So you're okay with sitting in the darkness for a while, knowing that this too shall pass. That real heavy feeling will pass, but we all have to be okay sitting in darkness. The darkness is from God, just like the light is. And a lot of times the darkness brings us much more lessons than being in the light. So when we try to reject off darkness, like I'm not going to cry today and I'm going to distract myself, that's actually not working in our favor. And it's a purpose. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. There's a purpose to be in the dark. There's a purpose to be in the light. And then, of course, we always want to be following the light as much as possible and becoming more light, moving back to light as fast as we can. So,
yeah, I think about creation. In the very beginning that we know, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. He created the day and the night, and it was good. So darkness is good, and light is good. Maybe what happens in the darkness, you say, oh, that feels a little scary to me. Okay, but God is the God of that darkness, and He is the God of this season. And so as we move into this season of fall, many things will begin to be out of our control. Many things will begin to fall apart. Things will come together. But I believe for me, what I want to take and also offer to you in the invitation is that there is a season for everything. A time for every purpose under heaven. Find out what that is for you right now. And the power of acceptance will open so many doors for you. So many doors of hope and balance.
So true. So the other thing about this season of fall is thankfulness.
Yes.
And we can be thankful that these are only seasons in our lives, and knowing that God does plan on bringing us from the darkness into the light all the time. So in this season of fall, I hope that you can look back and harvest, just concentrate on what have you harvested this year that is really light and going to support you as you move forward, and what things can you let go of. And also having this thankfulness for the people who have supported you, for God, that He really is there for our good. And so we are thankful to you in this season, and we really wish you a nice fall harvesting season.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go in grace.
And with grace.
Thank you for joining us. Oof. I love this season.